Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. And today I want to talk about CISA. Now, the reason why I want to talk about CISA is, quite frankly, there's a lot of changes going on right now with the federal government. I think everybody is aware of that. But CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, is beyond important to the critical functioning, quite frankly, of the United States. And I recently had a viewer that asked me to do a video on what CISA is, what they do, and why it's so important. And quite frankly, I'm a little behind on taking viewer requests, but I think this is an important one. And I want to make sure I give this the due diligence that it deserves because, quite frankly, I know a lot of people over there. I know I have colleagues over there. I have some that have actually been terminated in the new administration. And I think it's important to understand what they do and why they're so important and why they need to stick around for as long as humanly possible, especially today in this technological age. And so let's dive in with a primer on essentially who they are, why they're so important, and why they're important not just to the United States, but to the entire world, as they've always been since their founding. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, CISA, C-I-S-A, is, as I mentioned, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and it's a United States federal agency that is housed within DHS, or the Department of Homeland Security. Now, they were established in 2018 under the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency Act, and by virtue of that, they focus on protecting, essentially, the United States' critical infrastructure from physical and cyber threats. Their first leader was Chris Krebs, and here we are. So we're a couple leaders in, but here's what's going on. And like I said, let's talk about why they're important, basically to the world. So their core functions at an overview level are simply this. Under the umbrella of cybersecurity, they do threat monitoring and response. CISA tracks emerging cyber threats around the world. They coordinate information sharing on vulnerabilities and also provide incident response assistance to public and private entities. If you didn't know, they also have services like free vulnerability testing. If you sign up for it, and I'm hoping that's still around, but you can sign up for free vulnerability testing for your business, for example, and every week they'll run a free vulnerability scan on things like your website or your firewall and give you a report. It's automated, but it's pretty helpful because a lot of people don't have these kinds of services. Is it as comprehensive as pen testing, and other platforms? No, but it's a good bellwether for what's going on. On top of it, they also do federal network security. CISA helps secure and monitor federal government networks, ensuring that they meet cybersecurity standards and best practices. And the government has a lot of problems with that. We've read multiple Inspector General reports that show that everything from water to wastewater to, the State Department, for example, and everything in between has issues. And CISA is there to help assist and offer guidance to that. Not to mention they put out publications and bulletins, essentially for the world. On top of it, they also do infrastructure protection. They do risk assessments and mitigation. CISA identifies critical, basically infrastructure vulnerabilities. As I mentioned, they offer free testing for this. And so as an example, they will look at vulnerabilities in our power grid, in our financial networks, telecommunications, water systems, and then essentially guide those asset owners on strategies to reduce that risk. They're not the enforcement wing, they're the friendly consultants for cybersecurity that the government offers, not just to federal agencies, but to critical infrastructure as well. On top of it, they also offer physical security support because the agency provides training, tools, and best practices to protect physical facilities as well. So think about that nuclear power plant. CISA can assist with those kinds of things, not to mention outside consultants and all of that, but they offer a lot of free guidance that really gets you down that road. They're quite frankly very, very important. They also have stakeholder engagement and information sharing. They have tons of partnerships and collaborate with local, state, tribal, territorial, federal entities, as well as private industry. Essentially, the goal there is to foster a united approach to cybersecurity and infrastructure defense. The United States is incredibly behind, and CISA is on the forefront of trying to basically merge the private and public sector in terms of threat sharing, all these different kinds of things. And by virtue of that, they also do public alerts and guidance. They issue alerts on active cyber threats and publish advisories outlining newly discovered vulnerabilities, recommended fixes, mitigation practices, and more. In fact, I read CISA alerts quite frequently, along with many other different alerts like ISACs for information and sharing, and on and on. On top of it, they also do election security and critical event preparedness as well. So election integrity is one of the core functions that CISA has. They partner with state and local election officials to protect voting systems and broader election processes from both physical and cyber-based interference. Chris Krebs, most notably under the first Trump administration, basically said that the election, the 2020 election, was actually secure when there were claims that it was not. And CISA would know because they are the ones that are partnering with state and local as well as outside consultants to ensure that voter election integrity is there and secure. I've actually consulted on this as well with local and state authorities, in my capacity in my day job. This is an important one. On top of it, I do think they have a lot of benefits, not just the United States, but to the world. And I think that's something that quite frankly, we miss in the same way that there's a lot of things that USAID or USAID does for the world, such as offer vaccines to poor kids, and stuff like that. And it's like 0.3% of the budget. And CISA's not that expensive compared to a lot of other wings of the government. So the benefits I think that they have is that they are protection for essential services by safeguarding critical infrastructure, power grids, hospitals, financial networks. They're vital, not just the United States, but they also have global implications as well. Disruptions in those networks anywhere can trigger cascading effects on international supply chains and global commerce. In other words, if we go down in our critical infrastructure, we may have a problem exporting or importing things. And by virtue of that, that is critical to the stability of the global economy. On top of it, they are one of the best wings for promotion of cybersecurity best practices worldwide because everything they publish, the technical advisories, the shared threat intelligence, all of that is on an international scale as they are tracking a lot of these cyber criminal gangs or intelligence agencies around the world, as are other aspects of the federal government, like the NSA, for example. But CISA is the one that's putting out the advisories for the world that anybody on the planet can go to their website and read, not just Americans. By disseminating this technical knowledge and recommended safeguards, CISA helps both the U.S. and international organizations protect themselves against sophisticated threats. On top of it, we have coordination in things like crisis, right? Because CISA's capability to coordinate responses across different government levels and with the private sector is crucial during large-scale cyber incidents or natural disasters. Information sharing is the point here because joint response planning and other things is essentially what CISA's strategies are, and they can help prevent and minimize global disruptions and impacts. In other words, if they're finding things, let's say, in another government worming around, they'll alert the government. Basically, it's a rising tide that raises all boats. On top of it, they support innovation and collaboration as well. CISA's partnerships with the private sector, specifically technology companies and security vendors, help spur advancements in cybersecurity tools and defense innovations. These benefit governments, businesses, individual users across the entire globe. On top of it, I think that they have basically enhanced global stability worldwide because by contributing to more secure global digital ecosystems, CISA indirectly supports economic stability. Like I mentioned, they support global cooperation in cyberspace and a safer environment for international commerce and communication. We are living in an interconnected world. Basically, if I had a fiber optic cable and enough power and I could wrap it around the globe, I can send one packet of data around the globe 5 times in a second. An outbreak in Mongolia or somewhere can be hitting the United States in literally milliseconds. This is what CISA helps with. And unfortunately, they're losing key personnel right now that help provide all of this protection and services that benefits the planets. In early February, for example, of 2025, the new Trump administration pushed out a swath of federal workers that were previously involved in combating election-related disinformation, and that's a huge problem. And so, by virtue of that, we are left less secure in our elections, something that they are very good at securing. Roughly half a dozen employees from CISA who once worked on election security and resilience in that specific division were notified in early February that they were being put on administrative leave. That is of deep concern to me, because we are seeing a lot of changes. Recently, the Secretary of Defense had a stand down on offensive cyber operations against Russia, one of our biggest adversaries in cyberspace, who is known for disinformation campaigns, known for hacking. CISA is on the forefront of tracking those IOCs, or indicators of compromise, those unique techniques that Russian intelligence or their cutouts would use, not to mention the disinformation ecosystems that have been created that are being pushed out by bots and other technologies online. This is a major problem. And if we are losing that forefront in technology, in defense, and that intelligence sharing around the world with not just Five Eyes, but with other countries as well, that's a major problem. And that potentially sets us in the United States behind in terms of cyber defense strategies. And so we need to keep CISA robust. And when I'm hearing that they're firing top advisors, or they're firing those that would be looking at election integrity, especially since the current president seems really gung-ho, at least in his words, on maintaining a good election integrity. That was his whole premise and the aftermath of the 2020 election, and the lead up to the 2024 election. It makes more sense to me to have as many CISA personnel, individuals available in CISA to look at election integrity, to look at the disinformation that could potentially harm or influence our election results, not to mention just the hacking that we're seeing 24/7, 365. So that is CISA. That's what they do. That's why they're a benefit to the world. And I hope I'm answering questions, not just for one viewer, but for a lot of you out there, on why they're so important, why they need to be expanded, and quite frankly, living in a technological age, why they need to be pretty much everywhere, helping defend both private and public sectors. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, please, please attempt to stay private, informed, and secure. Take care.